Hi guys, it's Dylan from Bijou Diamond Jewellery in London again with another watch review, and today we're looking at the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak and specifically the steel 37mm. Let's take a little look at the history behind the Royal Oak first. In 1971, quartz watches were becoming more and more popular, and it was kind of killing the market for Swiss watches because the quartz was so much cheaper than the mechanical movements. They were also much more accurate at keeping time and much lower maintenance as well. So in 1971, Audemars Piguet's sales were down massively, and the same was with other Swiss watch companies as well. So AP knew they had to make something big to stay in the game, to set them apart and make people realize why they're so far above the quartz trend and why people should still be buying luxury Swiss watches. So in 1971, they brought Gerald Genta, a famous watch designer that had previously designed things for a few other brands, including Omega and Patek. The brand at the time was interested in moving towards steel watches, but instead of just a steel sports watch, they wanted to create a super luxury, super high-end finishing luxury sports watch that people could wear for every occasion. So Gerald Genta invented the Royal Oak literally overnight. It was a very angular, unique looking piece compared to the majority of the sort of dressy watches available on the market at that time. It was important that the watch was made perfect for all occasions, and the Royal Oak really was, in terms of being so beautifully finished and such a high level. It was basically a dress watch, but with a sports design. You could wear it casually, just with a t-shirt, but it looked equally amazing with a suit. The design was inspired by a diver's helmet, which is where you can see with that octagonal bezel. And the screws are very similar also to the helmet, the window on the helmet specifically. Another feature that looks similar to a diver's helmet is the rubber gasket around the edge of the bezel, and that's to keep water out. And they wanted to show that visibly so that people could really realize where the design came from, the diver, and it's meant to have like a nautical theme about the piece. The name Royal Oak came from a British naval sea ship, which was one of 8 ships, hence the 8 edges to the bezel, octagonal bezel, and that ship was called the Royal Oak. The bracelet on the piece was so unique compared to all other watches available at that time in the market. The finishing was unbelievable. All the different angles, the beveled edges, and all the different parts of the bracelet as well. There's all the little mini links, the lugs, and those flat brushed edges, the way they shine off the light. Another unique feature to the Royal Oak at the time was that amazing blue dial, that tapisserie dial or waffle dial. Once the watch had been designed and the design had been proven, they put it into production and it was released officially in 1972 at Basel. And it really wasn't well received. People thought it was too expensive. They didn't know why you'd want to wear a sports watch for a formal occasion. They thought that just doesn't work. They didn't understand that why would you want to combine the two or all different styles or occasions into one piece. It just didn't make sense to people. So in general, people really did not like the Royal Oak when it was first released. Obviously, AP were a bit worried because this was their answer to try and beat quartz and improve in sales, and no one wanted to buy the watch. After a while, people started to come round to the design and really realized, wow, this is such an innovative watch. Incredible design, unique, and like nothing else available on the market at that time. And it took over a year for AP to sell the first 1,000 watches. So it was much slower than they wanted, but they did still sell them in the end, and it became a really popular watch amongst collectors and hardcore watch lovers. Since then, there have been a few different variations to the Royal Oak. Precious metal versions were released, more complicated versions were created, Royal Oak chronographs, and one of the most famous iterations of the Royal Oak is the offshore. If you haven't checked out one of our Royal Oak offshore reviews, then make sure you go ahead and do that. Now the Royal Oak is an extremely popular watch, as is the offshore, and the Royal Oak is one of the top selling Swiss watches in the world now. Now let's look specifically at this one we're looking at today, which is the 37mm in steel. So this is sort of like the entry-level Royal Oak. It's a time-only watch. Obviously you've got a date window as well, but apart from that, it's a very simple design in terms of movement. And the watch itself is very simple, but within the design, within that simplicity, you have amazing detail. For example, the bracelet. Because there's so many different flat surfaces on the bracelet, like you've got your lugs and then each bracelet link, the light shines off each piece individually and creates this shimmer. The clasp on this watch is one of the best clasps in the world, if not the best clasp. It's so solid, feels incredible, just real engineering, and you don't even notice it's there. They phase it in with the bracelet so beautifully. I'm not a massive fan of super shiny watches like the Day-Date that we looked at a couple of weeks ago. I love that watch, but my only reservation is I wish they had more brushed metal on it. I love the brushed finish on this watch. Probably I'd say about 90% of the piece is brushed. These pieces are about being understated. I love the way they use the polished edges just to highlight parts of the watch. Sort of accentuates the angular design. And then the petite tapisserie dial is really, really nice. Such a nice feature. You only really notice it when you're up close. And then further away, in certain light, you get sort of like a pop of each square of the dial. I love the indexes on this. And the hands, they're just so simple. The original design was in white gold. It was intended to be a steel watch, but because steel is much harder than gold, it was difficult to polish and form into the shapes they wanted it to. So they made the first prototype in white gold, and as a little nod to that first design, they've kept the screws on the bezel in white gold. On some of the older ones, you can see they're slightly yellow tinged now as the alloy sort of wears away. A really cool feature about this watch is the crystal case back and that amazing 22 karat gold rotor with the Audemars coat of arms and a Piguet coat of arms. The movement inside is just finished to the highest quality. It's amazing. Every little edge is polished. And it's all done by hand. It's a piece of art outside and a piece of art inside. The bracelet's definitely my favorite feature about this watch. The way it shines the light off is just so special. There's nothing like it. It's 100% hands down the best bracelet in the game. And it's so comfortable as well. If you compare the links to an oyster bracelet, say, they're really small, and that allows them to conform to a wrist much better than a larger linked bracelet. For me, this watch is maybe a little bit too small. One of my favorite watches ever made is the 39mm chrono version of this. There's a few different variations of that, one being the Panda, which is one of the most famous variations. But for me, the 39mm fits me perfectly. The 41mm we get asked for a lot, and that's a great watch. Really, really smart piece. The 41mm chrono is too big for me, and also the 41 Royal Oak, the whole range of the 41mm Royal Oaks are too big, I find. Would I own this watch? Definitely. It looks amazing on girls, and can look really amazing on guys. If I had the choice between this steel version or the gold version, I'd probably still go for the steel. I like some of the rose gold Royal Oaks, but for me the steel is what it's all about. A big competitor to the Royal Oak is the Nautilus, and for me the Royal Oak is hands down the better watch. It's much nicer design in my opinion. It's slightly deeper and I find the Nautilus a little bit too flat. And also the Nautilus is so much more expensive. Of all bracelet watches, this would be one of the only ones that I'd wear on the bracelet rather than switching it out for a strap. The bracelet's an absolute work of art. It's stunning. Thanks guys for watching. Let us know what you want to see in the next review. We've got some cool watches coming up and we're potentially looking at doing some diamond reviews as well. Make sure you subscribe and like this video as well.